And we're back.
We are back, and bigger than ever. Or at least, I don't know. I feel somewhat. I feel swole. Been working out.
Swole, you've been working out.
Yeah, man. I'm well hinged now. It's great.
You're hitting the gym.
I am.
Yeah.
I'm hitting it, and quitting it, and also some other thing that I can't think of. A third thing.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we're both hitting the gym. Let's stop rambling on like Jeff Goldblum. This is we are doctors.
We are doctors, but we are not doctors.
Yes, and this is another episode, I believe 6.
We are 6 in at this point.
We are 6 in at this point. So thanks for listening if you are listening.
Yep, if you've been with us from the beginning, all we could say is thank you, and I'm sorry you have nothing else going on in your life, but you'll get there. You'll get there, buddy.
You'll get that, buddy.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've had yet another crazy week, and it's hard to plan out what's going to happen from week to week when you know that the White House is just deciding this random nonsense at any given time.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Chris, when you spin the wheel of chaos, there's really no telling what's going to come up.
Well, that's true. When you treat the world like a game show and you can just, everything is a prize in your eyes, well, I'm sure that you have, this isn't seen like chaos, this is seen like, in some ways, a plan. So, I think we can't start without addressing the giant geopolitical elephant in the room.
I think we really should. I think we should. Would you be referring, out of curiosity, Chris, to the fact that a Canadian goose recently fought off an American bald eagle that had attacked it?
I was actually. I mean,
Yeah.
this Canadian goose is basically standing up for the country of Canada. Saying,
I mean, it's a kind of impressive, right?
it is. I mean, as Americans, we're like, Canadian geese are annoyance at best.
Right, exactly. You see a Canadian goose in America and they're like, come on. All you're going to do is poop in my beautiful, totally still pond that the developer of my development made for reasons known only to themselves.
Oh, well, I mean, they have to.
Yeah,
That's what they do. Yeah. I used to work at a place where they used to come in every evening.
Oh, yeah?
And then they would land on the beach.
Yeah.
After, they would take 45 or 15 minutes to come in, sit on the beach, and then all night they would just eat grass and shit everywhere. And then in the morning we would rake the shit into the sand and then push the sand into the water, which is why you can't swim in the water there.
I mean, that's a really... I am glad to know that. I am going to stop swimming in those ponds with my mouth open.
Yeah, definitely don't do that.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to revisit that little policy of mine, I think.
Yeah, well, obviously we're not referring to Canadian geese and their issues defecating everywhere. We're talking about Ukraine.
Yep.
And how the Trump administration has fully decided to go at it. And I think it's good that we didn't do a pod immediately after the Zelensky Trump disaster.
Yeah, the meeting in the White House that rocked, I would think it is fair to say, the world.
Yeah, it definitely rocked the world. It was an unedifying display of just childish bullying of the highest order. But I think it was a lot more sinister than that.
Oh, do you think?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, it was clearly a lot more sinister than that, because the first thing that I saw, because I didn't realize it was like at the time it was happening, the first thing that I saw was just a shouting match erupts in the Oval Office. But then you see who effectively started the shouting match,
and you realize that it was J.D. Vance.
J.D. Mascara Vance, right?
The man with the most groomed facial hair, the most groomed for the least good effect, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you got J.D. Vance, who's basically trying to talk down to Vladimir Zelensky, and you're thinking to yourself, hang on, wait a second, back up. Who the hell is this guy to try to talk to Vladimir Zelensky like this? And Vladimir Zelensky, and basically what kicked it all off. And there are a lot of people who say, watch the whole thing. I have watched the whole thing. Here's where it kicked off. And it kicked off either when Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend asked why isn't he wearing a suit?
Yeah.
Or it kicked off when J.D. Vance said, oh, well, why aren't you looking for peace?
Right. And have you even have you even thanked us once since you came in the room?
Well, first off, he did. But second of all, that wasn't the first thing that he said. He basically said that, why haven't you gone for a ceasefire? More or less. And Zelensky had to remind him that we did do that. We did go for a ceasefire.
Yeah.
And what's the first thing that Russia did? They broke the ceasefire after they invaded Crimea in 2014.
Now, it's funny, Chris, because the thing is, since this whole idea of a ceasefire does depend upon Russia making an agreement and then sticking to that agreement, it's probably worth mentioning that there was a very interesting agreement that was made not long after Ukraine became an independent country.
Oh.
Because the thing is, Chris, as I'm sure you're aware, Ukraine was a part of the Soviet Union.
Yes, it was.
And as a part of the Soviet Union, it had quite a large number of nuclear missiles.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
And so when Ukraine became independent, then Russia, the successor state to the Soviet Union, was quite interested in getting those back.
Yeah.
The Ukrainian government was quite interested in not doing that, because if you got nukes, why would you give up nukes?
Yeah.
Nukes make people not want to invade you.
In theory.
Yeah.
In theory.
Yeah. But the thing is, Western diplomats and Russian diplomats and the Ukrainian government all got together and they came to an agreement, and the agreement said Ukraine gives up its nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
And then the United States, France, the United Kingdom, and Russia would all guarantee Ukraine's sovereignty and the permanency of its borders.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, they did, yeah.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
So that if anyone invaded, the others would defend Ukraine.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an amazing idea. Was that brought down in a treaty?
Oh, it was a treaty. Oh, yes,
oh.
It absolutely was. Fun story, Chris. Under the U.S. Constitution, not many people know this.
Okay.
But under the U.S. Constitution, treaties are the supreme law of the land.
Oh.
That's according to the Constitution. That's literally a clause in the Constitution. Chris.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
So, so when Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons in exchange for, defense guarantees, and then Russia decided, you know what, never the hell mind, we're invading anyway. I don't know, that's kind of an indication that Russia literally cannot be trusted on precisely the issue of whether it will, defend somebody else's borders or even not invade them itself in exchange for a treaty or a ceasefire or what have you.
Yeah, I mean, they'll say whatever they need to say at the time they need to say it, and then
Yep.
immediately jump to what they really want to do, much like the current president and administration of the United States. Which, we can get into more detail on that later.
Now that you bring it up, it is probably worth mentioning the fact that Donald Trump is very well known for making contracts with people in exchange for services, getting the value of those services,
Yes.
and then deciding not to pay and just making the people sue him. And then because he has lots of money and he can pay lawyers a lot of money, he can just sort of, string it out and string it out and string it out until the other side goes bankrupt.
Yes.
So, he's not really someone who believes in the sanctity of contracts or in the idea that you should live up to your word, really. Yeah.
No, he is a well-known bad businessman and an untrustworthy businessman.
Yeah.
Which is why so many of us were upset when he became president the first time.
Yeah.
And apoplectic when he became the president the second time.
Yeah, but it does honestly explain why he is so into Putin. Because, one faithless cheat loves another faithless cheat,
Well, I mean, he does. He seems very close to dictators and autocrats around the world. And he doesn't,
like attracts like, Chris.
Like attracts like, and obviously it's the idea that you are just you're the monarch.
Yep.
You are the absolute ruler. What you say goes, and you control so much of your world.
Yep.
However, the rest of us in the world are not super excited about that, and he's got to figure out a way around that bubble, because this isn't Russia, this isn't even Ukraine.
Yep.
We're talking about the United States here, which has a much more robust system. When it's activated. We can talk about that later, potentially in the podcast. But, so let's get back to that Oval Office meeting.
Yeah.
So it was at that point that Zelensky kicked in with the history lesson for J.D. Vance. And that's when J.D. Vance just ignored all that and said, you haven't even thanked us. And then Zelensky said, well, have you even been to Ukraine? And J.D. Vance said, no, I've seen it on television.
Well, isn't that special?
I've read reports. I'm not going to go there because you're just going to take me on some tour of places that are bombed, and you're not going to show me the real Ukraine.
It's all going to be carefully stage managed, so only see the people that the Russians have killed.
Yeah.
But what about the millions of Ukrainians that the Russians haven't killed yet?
Yeah.
Volodymyr.
Yeah. I mean, the reason that it was such a horrible, unedifying display is because Zelensky, who was an actor, by the way, he was like
Oh, I
a
know.
comedic. He was
Oh, yeah.
he was a comedic actor,
Mm-hmm.
but he also, I believe, studied law in university. So it's not like he's, I don't know, a failed businessman who was handed a ton of money and barely made any more of it in the past 40 years.
Yeah, it is a guy who was a success in his chosen field.
Yes.
And then, became an incredibly successful politician, who then rose to the occasion that, honestly, I mean, here's the thing, people, and I'm speaking to the audience directly here. This is a man who, when the Russians invaded, knew that the Russians had plans to kill him and his family.
Yeah.
That was absolutely what the Russians planned to do. They knew this because their security services had the evidence of it. And I will say this. If I knew someone was coming to kill me, Chris, I would run the hell away. You would not see me. I would move so fast. But Zelensky's response to this was to say, I don't need a ride. I need ammunition.
Yeah.
And that is a man of courage.
I believe he said that to Boris Johnson.
Yes.
He said it to the UK Prime Minister at the time.
Yep.
And that's amazing. So when this war all kicked off, every morning I checked to see if he was still alive.
Yeah.
Because you knew that every day that they didn't get him
Yep.
was another day that, like, this plan wasn't going to work.
Yep.
And it didn't work.
Yep.
And Russia was losing, and is kind of like, must be a stalemate now. But it was losing the war, and it's frankly the United States who's been providing it with the technology and the weapons and the intelligence, and Europe, however, has been providing with the money.
Yeah.
And but because we all understand, especially on this side of the pond, we all understand that this war is basically the finger in the dam, right?
Yep.
Invaders don't stop at the one country when they've just said, "Hey, look, I want that. I'm gonna take that."
Yep.
And then I've got everything that I want. I'm now full.
Yeah.
I was hungry.
No, the
now
appetite.
Now I've had Georgia and Ukraine. I'm okay. Hey, is that Austria?
Yeah.
Is
You know,
that?
I
is that
said
Hungary?
I said I was done, but I really want some Wiener Schnitzel.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh.
That's the thing. I mean, you have to. I think people, when they see states, they assume that states are so fundamentally different to people that we shouldn't judge them by the same basic standards. But I think I want to encourage people to ask themselves this. If you were walking down the street and someone came up to you and they pulled a gun on you and said, "Give me $50," and then you gave them $50, but you had, like, you know, another, like, $1,000 in your wallet, let's say, because you're that kind of guy. I don't know why. But would you then be able to say, "All right, well, good doing business with you. I'm off now"? Or would the person who is mugging you then say, "Actually, give me the rest of the money too"? And if they did, you wouldn't then say, "Oh, well, but no, we made a deal. I give you 50 and then I walk away," right? Because this isn't a transaction.
Yeah.
This is a mugging.
Yeah.
You know?
This is theft. This
Yes.
is robbery.
So if someone's already decided to rob you, they're not going to stop because, you know, they've gotten the amount that they originally thought that they could get.
Yeah.
They're going to take everything that they can, because why the hell wouldn't they?
Absolutely, this is a transaction. If Putin is able to succeed, it would take the world back into the Victorian era of,
Yep.
I want it, I get it. And, you know, like, we haven't had a significant world war since the 1940s.
Yep.
We've had skirmishes and battles. We've had American nonsense in Iraq and Afghanistan and Vietnam and Korea and, you know, Central America and all that stuff.
Yep.
Right? But we haven't had a full-on world war
Yep.
since the 1940s.
Because after World War II, everyone, and I mean everyone, came together to say, well, we can't do that again, because that was the worst war that the world has ever seen, and if we keep doing this, we're going to destroy ourselves.
Yeah.
So we made the United Nations, and we made a whole interstate system.
We made the European Union effective eventually.
The European Union as well, and so lots of international institutions to manage how states interact with each other, so that instead of war, you have law.
Your trade as well.
Exactly. And this is a world order, I should point out, Chris,
Yes.
that has made the United States insanely wealthy and powerful.
Absolutely.
This is a world system that the United States is the predominant leader of. This is a world system that has made the U.S. dollar the international reserve currency.
Yeah.
This is a world system in which the U.S. Navy maintains the freedom of the seas that allows the trade to happen, that allows us not to starve. And Donald Trump has made it his mission to destroy that system.
And it started on the day that he became president, but
Yep.
he's finally put his foot all the way down the gas pedal on Friday.
Yep.
And then Donald Trump jumped in on the yelling of Zelensky.
Yep.
Basically saying, what he was yelling at him, and it was on Friday of last week, so I can't remember everything. But effectively, what it felt like he was basically yelling at him for his first impeachment.
Oh yeah. Yes, of course.
Because let's not forget,
Yeah.
the first impeachment of Donald Trump was because he tried to extort Zelensky for technology to find dirt on Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, which didn't exist. And then, of course, Zelensky said, no, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to do that for you.
Right. And that, of course, was... The thing is, Chris,
Yeah.
and it's worth revisiting that little episode, I think, because what happened there wasn't just that Donald Trump tried to blackmail Zelensky. What he was doing was saying, I know that Congress has voted to give you funds and weapons to defend yourselves against a potential, at that time, Russian invasion. But even though the law says I need to do this, and I've sworn an oath to uphold and enforce the law, I'm going to not do that. I'm going to treat this money like I own it, like it's my personal property.
Yeah.
I'm going to just hold on to it and not give it out until you give me something in exchange.
Which is called extortion.
Which is called bribery, which is called basically misappropriation of public funds.
Yeah.
This is, at its basic level, Donald Trump saying that law doesn't matter. When the Congress passes a law to spend money, it doesn't matter. What matters is whether the president wants to spend the money. This is as unconstitutional an idea as you can get. This would mean, if taken seriously, that there is no such thing as a legislature in the United States. There is no Congress. Congress is an advisory board, and the president is a dictator. So that's why this was taken so seriously. That's why Congress was willing to impeach him.
Well, yeah, why the House of Representatives is willing to impeach him.
Exactly.
But again...
And a majority of the Senate did vote to convict, but
right.
Mitch McConnell, being Mitch McConnell, decided, oh no, it's fine.
It's a bridge too far.
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, to be fair, a majority voted to convict him on the second impeachment.
That's right.
When he committed further crimes and tried to overthrow the government and install a dictatorship. Funny how that keeps happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's... So, we're kind of weaving in and out, but it's
We're doing the weave.
We're doing
the weave.
But it's all about the same concept. It's about what Trump and the MAGA folk are trying to do to both America and the world. Before we finish, I mean, we should talk about what happened this week as well.
That's true. That's true.
So that was just Friday.
That was just
That
Friday.
was just Friday. So on Friday, everybody was losing their mind and said, "What the hell's going on?"
Mm-hmm.
By the next week, we're talking. By the beginning of the next week, we're effectively America has said, "Okay, we're shutting off all your funding for now because we've been offended to the highest level."
Which, again, he doesn't have the power to do, people. That is a violation of the Constitution. The one that he got impeached for last time.
Yes, and so in addition to this, Russia is just sitting back and watching the madness. So basically, what we have here is Trump trying to hold peace talks without Ukraine. Then when they bring Ukraine in the room, they're embarrassing them. They're trying to create the system. And here's what I think's happening. The whole reason for that episode was to make sure that Americans, or specifically his base, believes the lie that Zelensky is the bad guy here, right?
Yeah.
All that they've been doing all week is trying to portray Volodymyr Zelensky, a person who's basically survived for 3 years under a Russian attack, as the bad guy.
Who has led his people to defend their freedom against an actual invasion. I will point this out, right? All the talk on the right wing about how illegal immigrants are an invasion of the United States, and that's so serious and so incredibly terrifying that we have to, get rid of the 14th Amendment and violate the law and all that kind of thing, Zelensky is dealing with an actual frickin' invasion.
Yeah.
And they think he should surrender.
Immediately.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that, I mean, what I've noticed from the American right and right-wing Reddit or conservative Reddit is an increasing amount of people, probably because they're bots putting this stuff up as well, basically saying, you went into the White House, you disrespected the president, blah, 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 therefore you're on your own, stop, get your hand out of my pocket.
Right.
And again, this is all nonsense. 100% nonsense. But the idea is to create this narrative that Zelensky doesn't deserve any American money and just deserves to hang.
Oh, specifically, that the Ukrainian people deserve to lose their freedom, that they deserve to lose their territory, that they deserve to die, because they want to believe that Zelensky somehow was like, rude because he didn't wear a suit.
Yeah.
And I think, Chris, that that is the set of beliefs of psychopaths. I don't know how you're a normal, well-adjusted human being, and you say to yourself, look, I was willing to help you defend yourself against someone trying to murder you, but, I don't like your shirt, so I think I'm going to let the guy murder you.
Yeah, when you came to meet me, you were wearing the wrong shoes.
Exactly.
Didn't you understand this is not a gym shoe house?
No, definitely
This is dress shoe house.
Exactly.
Well, I guess it's time for you to go outside. I know that's where the purge is happening. But
Yep.
So, but there's other stuff. I mean, there's other stuff that the administration is trying to do, or threatening to do. For example, deport Ukrainian refugees.
Yeah, that's a new one. That's just, I think today, 240,000 Ukrainians who have asylum status in the United States, Donald Trump is now going to force back to Ukraine. And he's going to do this... Why is he doing this, Chris? What's the...
I don't know if there's any real reason. I think it's just probably as a bargaining chip. Because at the end, I think this is the point that I'm trying to get at. Every single thing that Donald Trump and the Trump administration and the MAGA party have done is to punish Ukraine for getting invaded.
Yeah.
And they have completely opened the door and rolled over and shown their soft belly to Russia.
Yeah.
So they're attacking Ukrainian refugees. They're pulling away the money. They're pulling away. They're pulling away the technology. They're pulling away the intelligence.
Oh, yes.
Right?
They did also say, not only will the United States stop sending Ukraine its intelligence about Russia's assets during the war, it's also told France and Britain that we can't share information that we got from America with Ukraine anymore.
Which is, now that is interesting. Now, how does America force GCHQ or MI6 to do something?
I mean, basically, theoretically, they could say, all right, well, we told you this in confidence, so you can't tell other people. And I think that would be something. But the problem is, what about intelligence that you get on the basis of that intelligence? What about further stuff that you find out because you know about a thing that you heard about from, say, the CIA? What I mean to say then is that there's a whole lot of intelligence that's going to be really messy here. This isn't like, I lent you my lawnmower and you don't get to lend it out to somebody else. This is, I told you about that guy who's going to come and try to murder our neighbor, but you can't tell him that you saw a weird car driving on the neighborhood with that guy in it. You can't say anything about that to him because, that would be you telling him something based on what I told you.
Yeah.
So it's, it's really quite bad. And here's the really funny thing. Ask yourself this.
Yeah.
What is Russia giving for this?
Yes.
The United States is surrendering its ally in Europe, Ukraine. It's surrendering its relationship with the NATO countries in Europe. It's surrendering American leadership. It's surrendering American stability. It's surrendering the American economy. It's making us weaker. It's making us poorer. What are we getting in return from Russia? And the answer is nothing, Chris.
The answer is absolutely nothing, which brings us on to our next topic, but for just a second, we'll take a break before we get there.
That's true. We do need a word from our sponsors.
We do need a word from our sponsor. This week we're brought to you by Nobody.
Yeah.
So happy to keep having you brought to you by Nobody as long as we can keep on talking about what we want to talk about. We'll see you
in just a little bit.
Nice.
And we're back. Nice. That was in unison. We weren't even trying for that.
We weren't trying for that.
We're just, we're on the same wavelength.
We are on the same wavelength.
And we finish each other's
sandwiches.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
What we were talking about earlier was what's America getting for everything that it's doing right now?
Yeah.
And the answer is, and this is an expression from in the UK that is very rare. You may not have heard of it.
Yeah.
It's sweet fuck all.
Sweet fuck all, you say.
Sweet fuck all. That's what we're getting. So
Yeah.
it's like,
yeah.
So what I've noticed over the past, it's been 6 weeks since Trump was inaugurated?
No, you've got that wrong, Chris. It's been 3 eternities.
yeah. Every day is a million years.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what's clear is happening here. We're having a massive American realignment.
Yeah.
And everyone can see it now. Now, some of us could see it, from the first Trump term
Yeah.
or the end of it. The end of the Trump's term was very scary because they were coming out with some mad stuff. They were coming out with the ways for the executive to control everything. Trying to change history in America, where slavery was, dope.
Oh yeah,
And everybody would benefit from it. The slaves the most.
Oh yeah. Well, they learned valuable skills that they could use to better their positions.
Yeah, and I guess they could pass it down through the freaking vocal or oral history because they weren't
Absolutely.
allowed to read and
'Cause
write.
They were abused physically if they did.
Yeah, or
That's great.
So
Yeah.
that was the end of the last Trump term, and then obviously MAGA's been very clear in the interim between the two terms that they didn't believe in Ukraine, they didn't believe in NATO, they didn't believe in anything that didn't involve the coast of America and the coast of California and the coast of Massachusetts, right?
Yeah.
So what we're seeing is this massive realignment, effectively towards dictators.
Yeah.
And people have been on television here in the UK, former very high level people at NATO. Military people, not politicians at NATO,
Yep.
and they're saying basically America's done. Like it's now left its position as
It surrendered its position as the leader of the free world.
as the leader of the free world. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the things that have been happening over this past week, in addition to effectively trying to leave Ukraine in the wind. We've also got unnecessary trade wars, which are a literal disaster.
Now this is probably worth. Let's take a moment and just talk about the fun with the trade wars, right?
Sure.
Because I think we all remember in the early Stone Age when the Trump administration first said it was going to be raising these tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. Sorry, that was like a month ago.
That was about a month ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I've got it. During that time, originally it looked like, he's going to do this incredibly stupid thing that's going to really hurt American consumers and raise prices all over the place. Surely he can't be serious. And then Canada and Mexico both had meetings with him where they said, look, okay, if you do this, we're obviously going to raise tariffs of our own, which is going to hurt us, but we've got our entire people behind us because, well, you're being a dick, and we don't like that. So when we raise our tariffs, it's not a political problem for us. When you raise tariffs, it's going to be a big political problem for you. The stock market's going to go down, prices are going to go up, people are going to be pissed. But we're willing to give you a win on this.
Yeah.
We, Canada, will... we'll keep doing this thing where we're going to put some more money into the border security.
Yeah.
We're putting $1 billion Canadian into it. We're going to do that thing we're already doing. And in exchange, we can put all this behind us. And Mexico said, well, you know what? We're going to do this thing where we're going to put some extra soldiers on the border.
Yeah.
Like we were already going to do.
Yeah, it was already planned.
But we're going to say that it's because of this, and that way you get a win, and we can let this thing all blow over.
Yeah.
So when Trump said, all right, well, I'm going to pause the tariffs for a month, I will admit, Chris, I was wrong. I thought what that meant was that Trump had realized, okay, I'm not going to win this one. This is a really stupid idea. If I do this, it's going to piss off all the people who put me in power. All the billionaires are going to be pissed because they're going to lose money.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to say, I'll come back to this next month, and then just not bring it up in a month, because who can even remember a month ago?
The infamous Trump 2 weeks.
Exactly. Just like the infrastructure bill that he'll get around to.
Yeah.
It's always infrastructure week somewhere in America.
And, or the healthcare plan that we've been waiting for 2 weeks.
Oh, that's true. That has been a long 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's been a long 2 weeks.
Because that's been a literal 8 years, actually,
Yes.
what that's been.
The ideas of a plan.
Yeah, concepts.
Concepts of a plan. Concepts of a plan.
And imagine my surprise when March come around, and it turns out, he was going to do it all over again. He was going back to the well. He was going for one more roll of the dice. And how did that work out for him, Chris?
Well, the stock market crashed almost immediately, just before the State of the Union address, which we should also talk about. The State of the Union. This is not normal.
No.
But yes, basically, as soon as he announced the tariffs, which he did on his dollar store freaking social media network, which that company did tank. Remember, that was one of the things that tanked.
Well, of course it did, because it was another rug pull in a series of rug pulls, which we should come back to, because God, is there a lot to say about financial scams?
Yeah, and him being at the center of them is hilarious all the time. But basically, in order to describe this, we're going to have to talk about Liz Truss, which we may have done before. And
Yeah.
when Liz Truss, who was Prime Minister of the United Kingdom for 49 days...
Madam Cabbage.
Madam Cabbage. Lettuce. There's a head of lettuce.
Sorry, let us discuss.
Lettuce, yes.
Yeah.
She listened to people who basically believe in trickle-down economics. Giving the richest in society all of the money, and they will occasionally sneeze, and a piece of their food or money might actually fall on some poor people. That's
Exactly.
trickle down in a nutshell. It doesn't work. It never existed. It has never worked.
No, it's an absurd idea, and every time you do see that much wealth getting sucked up to the top part of the society, you see incredible instability, you see more violence, you see greater amounts of social chaos. Basically, you get really bad outcomes if you have a really unequal society. And it's worth mentioning that the point in American history that everyone always talks about is like the golden age, the 50s, the 60s.
That's right.
That was when inequality was at its absolute lowest.
You mean wealth inequality?
Oh, yes. Wealth inequality, specifically and only wealth inequality.
Let's be very clear what you mean.
Thank you, because that is an important distinction to make. Oh my! It's like that's the problem with America. Basically, like you can press down the bubble somewhere, but it's gonna come up somewhere else.
That was already up. We're not talking like this grew out of nothing.
No, that's true.
But wealth inequality
God.
in the 1950s was low, and what I saw online, and it might not be true, but the what the tax rate back then in the richest people was like 91%.
The highest tax bracket was in fact 92%.
92%.
Yeah.
So
now you have to be super rich to be paying any of your money at that tax rate.
yeah, and I mean, we still have DuPont chemicals. We still have the incredibly hyper rich.
Oh, yeah.
In America.
There were some very rich people at the time paying that money, and they were still incredibly rich.
100% super rich,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So the reason I brought up Liz Truss is because a lot of these ideas come from Project 2025. The idea of tariffs replacing taxes is one of these dumb, stupid right-wing ideas that in the 1810s we didn't have any income tax and we had tariffs. It's like we didn't have roads for like past basically Cincinnati or Ohio. You had Chicago. It was a port.
Yeah.
You didn't have St. Louis. We didn't have the West.
Yep.
There were, so when you're talking about tariffs or funding America in the 19th century,
right?
That doesn't really apply to the 21st century, right? Because just because it sounds good doesn't mean it's a good idea. Like nuts and gum. Like nuts and gum.
Nuts are great. Gum is great. Don't mix and match on this, people.
Don't put them together.
Come
and if you
on.
get the nuts and gum reference, leave a comment below. But I lost my train of thought after nuts and gum.
Well, I mean, just it's really incredible that Donald Trump seems to think that you can get money from nothing. You can just conjure it out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Which seems to be his thinking when it comes to tariffs. That like he seems to think that tariffs are a tax on other countries that you make other countries pay in order to sell stuff to us.
Yeah.
But if they're going to do that, they need to make enough money to sell us stuff, so they have to sell at a high enough price to get the tariff, so they have to raise prices, so the person paying the tariff, is the American consumer.
I got an easier way to describe this.
All right, go on.
When you talk about tariffs, basically if somebody says, oh, it's a tax in another country, you just say, okay, how do you make another country pay taxes for you?
Ooh, good question.
So, like, if we're going to tax Canada, the IRS doesn't send Canada a bill and says, pay or else we're going to put you in jail. It's that jurisdiction question
That's
we talked
true.
about before.
They are, in fact, a separate country, it turns out.
Maybe that's why Trump is like, we'll invade all these other countries just so that we don't have to be more tariffs. But the point being is that the point for me bringing up the tariffs and stuff is that when Liz Truss brought forth her ridiculous budget, and her budget was basically give a bunch of money, borrow 40 billion pounds and give it to the richest in society. The markets, who she thought would be on her side because she'd been told from these fools who call themselves smart, saying that, oh, of course, the markets will be super happy to have all,
right? Look at all this money. It'll be fantastic.
And the market said, hey, we can do math. So you're going to massively increase your debt and effectively give it away to the richest people in society. That's dumb.
Right.
So all of a sudden, the value of the pound dropped to the value of the dollar. Basically, they hit parity, which means The pound is never supposed to be at the same level of the dollar because that would screw over the country's economy, the UK's economy. And the bond markets went nuts. The interest rates across the UK went through the roof in 8 seconds.
Prices of imports skyrocketed because, of course, if your currency is less valuable, it costs more to import stuff. And Britain imports stuff.
Well, you'll find that Britain is an island in the middle of the fucking sea. So importing things is pretty, important, given that we only grow a little under half of the food we need.
Wait, are you telling me, Chris, that I can't have any fresh British grown pineapples?
Yeah, it's hard to get pineapples, oranges, limes, kumquats. It's very difficult to grow them here.
Oh, well, that's terrible. Well, that explains the state of my garden, Chris.
I've been trying to tell you this for years, that your orange tree simply won't grow.
Man, I just want a little piece of Florida. That's all I want.
You want the smallest piece of Florida that you could possibly get without any of the heat.
Exactly.
But the point being is that, to bring this back again, is that Trump, when he launched these tariffs, somebody may have thought, oh, finally, people will think, yes, Trump is doing this wonderful, amazing thing. Mm-hmm. And again, the industries that must have called Trump in January and said, what the hell are you doing?
Yep.
Are now having to call him again because overnight, the cost of trucks, the cost of cars in America have increased.
Yep.
Overnight. I just saw a video today of a guy who was being interviewed at a car lot, I think in Pennsylvania. And then basically it said the cost of this truck now has now increased to increased by $20,000.
Yeah.
I think it was an $80,000 truck, and now it's at a $100,000 truck.
Yep.
And he's like, how am I supposed to sell these trucks? And he was on Fox Business, by the way. He wasn't on some left-wing, tofu eating, Birkenstock wearing channel. He was on the most American channel in America.
Exactly.
And the guy was talking straight to these people's faces and like, this is a dumb move. Like, you've now screwed over my entire business. No one can afford this.
Yeah. The thing is, the fact that the United States has had such a strong free trade agreement with Canada and Mexico since the 1990s has meant that it's very easy to ship car parts back and forth across borders. And so what you've had is, as any student of trade would tell you, as Adam Smith, risen from his crypt, would explain as his jaw slowly rotted, because he would be zombie Adam Smith, obviously.
Yeah.
Which would be absolutely baller as far as I'm concerned.
Still useful.
Totally. As he would explain, when you have increased trade, people specialize.
Yeah.
And that's actually where wealth comes from the specialization of labor.
Yeah.
People doing what they're really good at and trading the results instead of one man trying to do everything. So
the magical invisible hand. If I can make ball bearings better than I can make a full car, I'm just going to make the ball bearings.
Exactly. And then I can make, the doors or whatever. We can all get together and produce cars, and we'll all make money. We can all get rich. It's great, and we don't have to kill anyone, theoretically.
Or invade another country to get their people who do that.
Amazing.
Because everybody is prospering.
Yeah. But then Trump comes along and raises those tariffs, so every time a part crosses a border, it's now going to get whacked with a tariff.
Every time.
And the end result of doing this is that all the cars that are manufactured in America, because so many of their parts are crossing borders, the expectation is that the prices will go up 25%.
Per part.
Oh yeah.
But it's not for the whole car.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah.
Let's say, think about if you're listening to this on the computer.
It is for that guy at the Pennsylvania car lot.
Oh, it is
because
per
it's
car,
gone 80,000 to 100,000. That is an increase of 1/4. That's a 25% increase, and that is a real indication of what these tariffs could do, because America runs on cars. America loves cars. America sees itself as a car-driving nation,
specifically designed for it, and apparently our gas, our petrol, depending on who you are, it's effectively subsidized.
Oh yes,
so people can buy more of it.
Yep. And now all of a sudden, not only are cars getting a lot more expensive thanks to Trump, but also a whole bunch of gasoline and fossil fuels are going to get more expensive because a bunch of them come from Canada.
Well, yeah. So obviously this is a well thought out plan. So I mean, this is just one bit of a wider problem.
Yeah.
That we have these unnecessary trade wars, which some people are basically saying is a precursor to war, because you are changing your entire economy from interdependence to just isolationism.
Autarky. Like the Nazis did.
Yeah.
Because it worked out so well for them.
Yeah, I mean, but and what you're seeing in America right now is that effectively a closing of the borders of a way. I mean,
Yep.
sure, you can still get to America, but it's now harder for you to get things into America.
Yep.
And that's America doing that to itself.
Yep.
So the only thing that this is doing is creating an isolationist America
Yep.
and weakening America.
A weaker, poorer, lonelier America.
And therefore, that's why it's a great realignment, because there is no benefit to Americans
Yep.
for this. No American is saying, I want to pay 25% more for my car,
Yep.
or for my computer, or for my food.
Yeah.
Remember, like, if you want to buy tequila, for example,
Yep.
you don't make that much tequila in America. Agave grows in Mexico.
Yep.
And now that's 25% more expensive. What's the benefit in that? Where's the benefit to the consumer? If this is supposed to be the Republican Party, they're supposed to care about business. So if you run a booze shop and somebody comes in wanting a fifth of tequila,
Yep.
you know, because it's, I don't know, they go to University of Florida.
Look, they're on a mezcal kick, man.
They're on a mezcal kick.
Just run with it. Just run with it.
Just
Don't
run
question
with
it.
Yeah, but like, you know, like, what is the benefit? And, you know, this stuff always hurts red states first and hardest.
Yeah.
You know, the blue states will be hurt.
Yeah.
But it's the red states which get hurt even more. And then again, you have Doge.
Oh, yeah.
So let's spin around a Doge. What's
Yep.
Doge doing? They're not with a scalpel slightly removing things. They are cutting. They are just pulling body
Yep.
parts off of the bureaucracy, and
Yep.
they've been trying to do that,
Yep.
and then they accidentally, you know, mess around with nuclear
Yeah.
power, or
Fire the
accident-
people who keep the nuclear weapons safe.
Yeah,
That's a good idea. That's
yeah.
always a good idea.
Once again, we have to mention big balls.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Big
balls.
balls. Coming, swinging on in. And, just bouncing his way through and, cutting people off left and right.
Yeah. And
So-
but what is it doing? It's weakening America.
Yeah.
They're going out. They want to go after Medicaid. They want to go after the Department of Education.
Yep.
They want to go after the IRS.
Yep.
And I mean, nobody defends the IRS, but I will.
I will 100% defend the IRS, because if the IRS doesn't have money, then it has to focus on the people who are easiest to audit. And those are poor middle class people, Chris.
Yeah.
Those are people who make less than $100,000 a year, which is, last time I checked, the vast majority of people in the United States. So rich people who can afford really good accountants and lawyers and what have you, well, they can just, they will not get audited. They will be too expensive to audit.
Yeah.
They will get away scot-free, which means that everyone else has to pay taxes for them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like creating that system that France had back in, like the Third
Oh,
Republic, or
God.
the Third, where
Right,
it's like
yeah.
the poor had to pay the taxes and the rich just got to hang out.
Yeah, exactly, right?
It's just, I mean, again, and the end of that French period didn't work out well for the rich either.
No, it
because a
freaking
lot of their
didn't.
heads were rolling down the street. So, and that's not a call to violence or
No,
anything.
obviously,
for,
violence is bad, and we
Violence
very
is
piously encourage people
Violence is bad.
not to engage in any kind of violent
Violence
activity.
is bad.
Violence is bad. Violence is absolutely bad. Yeah.
All right, did you get that, JD? All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're witnessing the weakening of America by an American president, and we're watching like the kowtowing to Putin, and let's remind people just who Putin is.
Yeah.
He kills his political opponents. He throws them off of buildings. He
Yep.
poisons them.
Yep.
He invades his neighbors.
Yep.
Right? And yet, in the past 6 weeks, I have heard precisely zero negative comment from the Trump administration on Putin.
I can do you one better than that, Chris.
Okay.
Amongst the many things that Donald Trump has said Zelensky needs to do in order to get, aid from the United States, is that Zelensky has to stop saying mean things about Putin.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
You are not allowed to say mean things about the man who is killing your mother. You are not allowed to
No.
say mean things about the man who is sending goons to sexually assault your cousin. You are not allowed to say anything about the man who is trying to take away your freedom, because Donald Trump thinks that the people trying to do those things are good,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. And that's why this is the great American realignment, and not great in a good way.
No.
But again, I think not supposed to talk about this at this time, but we are not fully there yet. But I think that if the MAGA party, if the Democrats can't get their act together by the midterms and like win both houses,
Yeah.
then we are there.
Yeah.
Because at that point, there's no one to stop them.
Yeah.
Right. Like right now, let's say that somehow we're not even going to cruise through the next year and a half. It's going to be bloody, right?
Yeah.
because I've also seen things that people are looking into the Insurrection Act when they could be activated. Because
Yep.
was it Musk or was it who wants to release Derek Chauvin?
Oh, I hadn't even heard about this.
Oh yeah, I'm forgetting the right wing commentator that says it might have been Musk that said it's time to basically release Derek Chauvin back into the population.
Right.
Now, what that means is that if Derek Chauvin gets released, there will be protests around America. They're trying to recreate 2020.
Yeah.
And with Pete Hegseth as the Secretary of Defense,
Yep.
all Trump really needs to do is say, "All right, I have now illegally triggered the Insurrection Act.
Yep.
Start shooting protesters."
Yep.
Like, I don't see there's any reason why Trump would not shoot a protester.
Well, we know, actually, that during his first administration, he actively tried to get the National Guard to do that.
Yeah.
He repeatedly argued that they could just shoot him in the legs or whatever, because he doesn't understand anatomy, because he doesn't understand anything, because he's Donald Trump. And the head of the military had to explain to him that would be murder, and that murder is a crime. Donald Trump apparently kept bringing it up anyway, because, well, it's pretty clear that Donald Trump, noted convicted felon and sexual assaulter, by the way,
Yeah.
doesn't really care for law.
No, he doesn't really care for law. And what has he done in the interim? What did he do in his first couple of 6 weeks?
Well, he's been breaking laws left and right,
Oh,
Chris.
but he's also trying to do massive changes in the military
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's true.
To
He
get-
has...
to create a more pliant military. Who,
Yep.
if I say, start shooting people, start gathering up people.
Yep.
He wants people in place that are going to do that.
Yeah.
And if you happen to be MAGA or whatever, and you hate listening to this,
Yep.
if you happen to think that you are immune, you are not immune, because the only people who are, for now, immune are those who can afford an island and the yacht to get them there, and the
Yep.
staff and the fresh water and everything to create their own island.
Yep.
There's only a handful of people on Earth who can survive this, because they know that if it all goes tits up, they'll
Yep.
just go to their island.
Yeah.
If you voted for Trump and you think that, this isn't going to happen to me and we're just, scaremongering.
Yep.
Look at Ukraine, look at Russia, look at these countries that, Ukraine wasn't always, this free country that, we're trying to defend now.
Yeah.
Over the past 20 years, Putin's been trying to invade, and if he can't invade, he's been trying to mess with
Yep.
their government. You may have heard of that before.
Yep.
Russia. Well, Ukraine was ground zero for that.
Yep.
So the things that the things that are coming out, it's not just a realignment, but it's really trying to make us weak so that other people can, I guess, run over us.
Well, I mean, basically, yeah, what's going on is that Trump has decided to end the American century. He's decided to end American greatness, to end America's leadership of the world, to end all the things that make America powerful and wealthy. And why is he doing this? Apparently, he thinks he can get really rich doing it. Apparently, he thinks that Putin will love him if he does it, and for some reason, he really wants Putin to like him. Like, that matters way more than anything else.
It's very weird, his desire to keep Putin happy.
I mean, I got some questions about it. But here's one other thing I will say to anyone listening to this who is thinking to themselves, that they, as you say, Chris, will be immune. He doesn't need you anymore, because he's already president, and he can't get reelected legally, so he doesn't need you to vote for him, so you don't matter to him at all.
And we've seen this.
Yeah.
We've seen this with the people who thought that they were safe because they voted for him.
Yep.
Then they had government contracts.
Oh, yeah.
And then they lost those government contracts when Doge came through with,
They thought they'd be safe because they were veterans.
Those
Or
veterans.
because they were good at their jobs.
Yep.
Or because they knew that they weren't, one of those people who was just, being inefficient and wasting government money. And it didn't matter because they all got fired.
Because they all got fired without warning
Yep.
and without cause.
Illegally as well, I should point out.
So they might get their jobs back, but that won't be because some Trump lawyer helped them.
Oh, no.
It'll be because somebody from the ACLU or somewhere else decided that
Yep.
that you've had your civil liberties violated, and
Yep.
we're going to help you, even though you think that we should be shut down because we're all Satanists.
Yep. Only because some judge that was probably not appointed by Donald Trump will say, well, the law is very, very clear on this.
Yeah.
And the government doesn't have the power to fire you without cause because that's how the law works. The Administrative Practices Act, I believe. It's the cornerstone, basically, of how the government is kept under the control of the people, is that the government has to obey the law. Because if they don't have to obey the law, then there is no government, there is no law.
Right. It's just anarchy.
Exactly.
So
Anarchy with someone with a lot of guns at the top of it.
But yeah, but as we're talking about Trump's current plan to, weaken the United States of America, which, by the way, America first.
Yep.
Over on this side of the pond, everything changed because on Thursday of last week.
Yes.
On Thursday of last week, Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Man of the immaculate hair.
Man of the immaculate hair, yes. He went over to America and basically was shined by all accounts. And he impressed Trump, and he gave Trump a letter from the king.
Yep, very impressive. Very
To
impressive.
come over, and I want to give you another state visit. Apparently, Trump needs reading glasses, so he wasn't able to read it in the chair. So he needed. he literally went to Starmer and just like, could you just read that pivotal paragraph right there? And then what that was is he was inviting him to a state visit. Obviously, the next day, Trump began his degradation of Ukraine, which people said, okay, well, including people that I work for, people like Stephen Gethens, MP, who were saying, who was an S&P MP, how about we not do the state visit now, because this guy is clearly on the side of Putin.
Yep.
And this is where life gets very, very difficult for Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer is trying to act as this peacemaking bridge between the United States and Europe, because Europe, if you weren't aware, last night, Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, basically put out a call to arms in French. And I know we take the piss out of the French a lot, but those guys don't mess around.
Yeah.
Like, those guys are very serious about, like, fighting.
Yeah. My understanding of Macron's speech was along the lines of l'audace, encore l'audace, toujours l'audace, which, basically saying, it's on. It's here, and we need to deal with it. It's time for us to act, and we have to act together. Because if we don't get our act together, if we do not confront Russia, things could get very, very bad indeed. And
effectively is also saying that we don't know where our friends are anymore. We know where our friends are around us, but we don't know. And he was hinting at, we don't know what America's going to be at. In the future. So we can't rely on them anymore, which is a huge deal for us as Americans. Like I know that there's a lot of Americans say, oh, well, we shouldn't be paying the money anyway. It's like, America's role in the world, sure, we have lots of bombs, we have lots of guns, but we also have lots of money, and we help a lot of people. And those people that we help, maybe they won't strap a bomb to their chest and try to blow up your school.
I mean, that's helpful. It's nice when, people don't do things like that.
That is nice.
I prefer it when that doesn't happen. But it's more than that, Chris. America's strength doesn't come from America alone being strong. It comes from America's position in the world. It comes from the fact that everyone wants to do business with us. Everyone wants to trade with us. Everyone needs U.S. dollars to be able to buy oil from countries whose currency is not the U.S. dollar. It comes from the fact that everyone is desperate to invest in American securities because they are the safest financial instrument that exists. They are what everything is compared to. And the thing is, Donald Trump has taken a sledgehammer to the foundations of all of that. So, if all of a sudden the United States can't be counted on to pay its debts, people aren't going to want to lend money to us, which means that all of a sudden interest rates are going to skyrocket, which is going to make America much, much poorer. It's going to mean that all of a sudden people start saying to themselves, well, if I don't really want to trade with America because I can't trust them not to suddenly slap a bunch of tariffs on me. Or invade me. Then people don't really need American dollars anymore to engage in trade, which makes the dollar weaker, which makes imports more expensive for America, which means that the United States all of a sudden finds out that it can't borrow money the way that it has. It can't increase its debt the way that it has. It can't run a massive deficit the way that it has. And it can't not do those things without really raising taxes. Or alternatively, as Donald Trump is doing, deciding to just make the government stop working altogether so that they can sell it for parts.
Yeah, and bringing us back just for a second to Keir Starmer. The question is, and we'll just do a short bit on this.
Yes.
He's trying to create a space that Ukraine is protected, and that Ukraine is protected by 20,000 French and British troops, right?
Yeah.
So that if a deal is made, this is more than Donald Trump has gone for. If a deal is made in Ukraine, that you don't like that Russia, when they try to invade again,
Yep.
they will hit a wall of not Ukrainians but NATO
Yeah.
people. The question is that can Starmer succeed? I mean, the problem is that he was on Thursday on Thursday night he was King Starmer. On Friday morning he was King Starmer. By Friday afternoon UK time,
Yep.
it was how are you going to fix this relationship? And now, how do you fix this relationship? And or do you keep it going? Do you maintain the relationship? Do you just give up?
Where does Britain go from here? And the thing is, I think, well, I don't begrudge Keir Starmer's attempt to be that bridge. I don't begrudge his attempt to try to manage that relationship, even if it means, making Donald Trump feel special and giving him a little win so that he's just not going to attack us. I get it. I get it, and I don't begrudge it. But it's clear now that it's not going to work. The United States is not a reliable partner anymore. The United States has now sided with the enemies of this country, the United Kingdom, as well as with enemies of the United States, for that matter, which is fun. Yeah, so if you're Europe, you can no longer count on the United States. And if you cannot count on the United States, then you need to start counting on yourselves. And the European Union, collectively, is big. We've got a lot of people. It's got a lot of money. If it decides to start putting money into defense seriously, it can build an army that, while possibly not being able to, say, take on the United States easily, would be able to destroy Russia. Because Russia has an economy 1/10 the size of the European Union.
Yes.
Like, Russia's poor, man. Russia's broke. They just put all their money into the military because they got nothing. Because if they were to grow their economy, that would mean, Vladimir Putin not being able to steal everything.
That's right.
So,
So we are looking at a very different and complicated world. And as I said before, we're more in a Hunger Games world now than we are in a kind of Star Trek, Starfleet world where everyone works together.
Yeah.
And I think we should just think about the State of the Union, right? So the State of the Union address, not the State of the United States, but the State of the Union address, where when Trump walked in, to one side you had a rousing ovation, almost, definitely coordinated, but also each one of those Republicans knows that if they aren't sitting there clapping louder than the other one, there's Elon Musk staring down at them.
Yep.
The unelected bureaucrat who is there to get rid of unelected bureaucrats.
Yep.
And so they are shitting bricks. Right?
Yep.
And on the other side, you have Democrats who, albeit are a bit at sea about what they want to do. Some of them just, got, willingly thrown out.
Yep.
Like the representative from Texas.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. And some of them held up a sign. And one of the people who held up a sign was just that this is not normal. And it's a small but very important, like picture that was made.
Yeah.
Where you have the Republicans or the MAGA party sitting there glowing with glee.
Yep.
And then you on the other side is like, no, this is not normal. This is not okay. We are in a very bad place right now.
Yep.
And all signs point to it not getting better anytime soon. But again, it gets better if you get out there and vote.
Yep.
If you ignore, if Musk is threatening the primary, not just Republicans but Democrats, drop in as much money, because he dropped in £250 million for Trump.
Yeah, it is amazing that he was able to just sort of buy an election and then get put in charge and then use that power to be able to give himself billions and billions of dollars of taxpayer money.
Yeah.
It's almost like, what's that word? Oh, right, corruption.
Massive corruption.
Yeah, massive corruption.
corruption.
That's the one. Yeah.
But, let's probably not end with such a down note.
No, I think you were absolutely going with the right message. And I'm gonna amplify it as well, which is the solution to depression is action. The solution to these feelings of dread and uncertainty is to take control of what you can. It's not going to solve everything, but meet with friends, talk with them. If they don't know what's going on, let them know what's going on. If there's a group in your area that you can join it. At the very least, you won't be alone, and if you act together, you may be able to get something done. it's better than rotting away alone in a tomb, reading the news, and desperately hoping that things get better.
Yeah, as I said before, democracy, it depends on the people.
Yeah.
And for now, Americans are still allowed to vote. There's still elections coming up.
Yep.
And this is what the Republicans have been doing for 30 years. They've been getting in on the ground level
Yep.
on every single local election.
Yep.
And so, get involved.
Yep.
Get out there, because America doesn't like what Trump is doing, despite the fact that, you might hear like, this is great.
Mm-hmm.
The polling on his actions, there is no positive news for him on the polling on his actions.
Yeah.
Right? All he has on his side are the right-wing news media,
Mm-hmm.
which have now had to change their story to everything is great.
Everything is absolutely great.
Everything's
Tariffs
fine.
are fantastic, and it's fantastic that we're not doing the tariffs.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, P.S. Today, Trump pulled off he stopped the tariffs in Mexico.
Yeah, he sure
Literally
did.
today.
Yeah, he sure did.
Because they're a terrible idea, and it doesn't really work. And because America isn't Russia, we are, as a country, we are unique because we didn't start with the monarchy.
Yep.
We're not 2,000 years old.
Yep.
We have only a memory of democracy.
Yep.
So the thing that makes democracy work is the people. So you get out there, you start talking, you start writing.
Yep.
If somebody comes back at you, you go right back at them. But
Yep.
you go back at them with facts.
Yep.
But it's not easy. But, if it was easy, everyone would have done it by now.
Yeah, and consider this. In a democracy, the people are sovereign. The people who want to end democracy are trying to take away your power. They are stealing your property, and they will not give it back.
Yeah, absolutely. And always remember that dictators are almost always elected. So make sure that you get out there and get yourself known. At least
Yep.
try. At the very least, try.
Yep.
And in America, it's easy to not try. In Britain, it's easy not to try. And
Yeah.
in a lot of the world, except for France, where they protest probably once every 3 weeks.
I hate to say this on a podcast that is primarily for the Americans and British people and Americans living in Britain, but we might have to get more French on this.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh, the French love it. They love a protest.
They do love a
They
protest.
love a
They're
protest.
very good at it. They're
Yeah.
very good at it. So
And it's effective.
yeah. Yep.
So on that, I think we're going to end it there. It was
Yep.
a bit weavy today.
Yeah.
But
To be fair, we're in the middle of a chaotic storm, and we're just trying to keep our heads above water, people.
we are just trying to keep our heads
Yep.
above water.
Yep.
But as always, I'm Dr. Silverstein,
I'm Dr. Armshaw,
and we're doctors.
but not doctors.
Good night.